Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Hanley Effect. I'm John Dyben.
I'm Rachel Docekal.
Hey there, Dr. D. How are you?
Dr. D. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm ready to talk about mental health and all kinds of good things.
I am too. This is going to be a great guest. I'm excited.
So, of course, as we all know, I am the funniest guy that we know, right? Because, right? Doctor, no? Okay, sorry.
Oh, boy. Whew.
I'm going to, but we have someone today. We have a guest who has actually used his life and used his talents to be funny and to entertain people, but also
be actually funny.
Oh, my
actually
goodness.
funny.
We'll have to talk about that later. I know, right? So, David, we are so glad that you are here. I want to say Granirer. You have to pronounce your name, the last name again.
Yes, it's Granirer.
Granirer.
Yeah, you got it.
I love it. And David is a counselor. He's an author. He's a mental health comedian. He's a stand-up comic. And he is a speaker and an advocate for mental health. So it's a long list of things. And we are so grateful that you've taken time to come and be with us today.
Hey, glad to be here.
David, one of the things we really talk about is the stigma that's associated with behavioral health. And the work that you're doing, especially looking at things through a lens of laughter, I love the work in terms of breaking down that stigma and those barriers that really keep people from getting the help that they need.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, what I always say is that people come to our shows and they expect, all those labels like schizophrenia and bipolar and all that kind of. The best compliment I ever had was I heard someone after a show saying that guy with schizophrenia was hilarious. And how often do you hear hilarious and schizophrenia in the same sentence?
Yeah, good point.
So we, not often.
Not often.
I can't wait to hear a little bit more about what that's, what we love to know. We love to know a little bit about what you do, but also about your journey. And so can you tell us about who you are, what you do, what it's like, but also about your journey to get where you're at today?
Sure. Well, I guess my journey starts when I was about 16 or 17. That's when, so I have bipolar, but it's also depression. That's mainly how it manifests. And I was 16 and my depression began. And I actually attempted suicide and I ended up in a psych ward. And I was not diagnosed at that point. So basically, they kind of treated me like I was a moody teenager. Oh, kid, just do your homework and, clean your room and everything will be fine. And so I went around for almost 20 years with undiagnosed, untreated depression. And I went from being one of those really annoying, obnoxious class clowns. I basically vanished for 2 decades. I had, like just everything left me. And especially because when you have depression, it really kills your confidence, your self-esteem, all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't till my sort of mid 30s that I was actually diagnosed. I remember I was seeing a psychiatrist, and she said, "David, you're depressed. You should go on medication." And at the time, I thought all medication was evil and bad. And, if it had been like wheatgrass juice, it'd be, oh, yeah, this is awesome. But, and I just want to stop and say meds are not for everyone. They've helped me, but they're not so I'm not here to push meds on anyone. But you kept saying, "David, you're depressed. You should go on meds." And I was like, "Yeah, but they'll change my personality." And she's like, "Yeah, I think that's the whole point, David." So I went on these meds, and all of a sudden, literally within a week or two, I started to feel better. I started to feel like, wow, so this is what so-called normal people feel like. They want to get out of bed. They look forward to the day. And as I started to feel better, I thought, something, I think I want to do stand-up comedy. And so at the time, also, I was working for the Crisis Line, the Vancouver Crisis Center, and I was getting my counselor training. So this all happened around the same time. And so I started to do stand-up comedy. And The first time I did comedy, you know the difference between we're laughing with you and we're laughing at you. Well, I always tell you, well, guess which one I got? And it was like neither. I got nothing. 5 minutes of dead silence. It
I
was, it was,
understand.
yeah, it was horrible. It was like this club. It sat about like 300 people. There were maybe 25 people there that night. So it was like this big empty cavern. I got nothing. And I thought, something, that's it. I'm not going back again. I'm done. But then I took a comedy course. And the next time I got up, the club was packed with all our friends and supporters. I knew what I was doing, and it was the best high I ever had. And I thought, wow, I need to do this. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I just need to do stand up comedy. And so what happened next was I was asked about 2 years later. I got asked, it was a total fluke. I got asked to teach a stand-up comedy course at a local community college. It's a night course. It has nothing to do with mental health. But occasionally I would see people go through that class and they would have a life-changing experience. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to give this to people who wanted the comedy, but who also wanted the life-changing experience? And that's what gave me the idea for Stand Up for Mental Health.
What a great idea. What a great idea.
And I want to ask you to talk a little bit more about Stand Up for Mental Health and what that is, but I have to go back just a second. So this is the story I just heard, right? So this experience as a teenager, experiencing depression, kind of disappearing, then finally getting diagnosed, deciding why. Oh, and by the way, I was in my counselor training. So just to be clear, that at some point you also actually studied mental health and became a counselor.
Yes, that's right. I'm a counselor. I don't see a lot of clients anymore because Stand Up for Mental Health is, it's been my main gig for like 21 years. But I still see a few clients just to kind of keep myself, my hand in it. But yes, so I am also a counselor aside from everything else. And I think that a lot of what I do in Stand Up for Mental Health, I mean, it's not therapy, but I tell people it's therapeutic. It's not a support group, but it's supportive. And so some of the counseling skills transfer over really nicely to running the group and supporting the people that are going through the program.
So can you tell us more about, like, as you're describing this, for those that have never heard of Stand Up for Mental Health, what is Stand Up for Mental Health?
Okay, so Stand Up for Mental Health, excuse me, is my program teaching stand-up comedy to folks like myself with mental health conditions. So basically, I take people who have never done comedy and who are obviously terrified and nervous and all that kind of stuff. And I teach them how to do comedy. And so it works a few different ways. So here in Vancouver, we have a 6-month program and we do 2 shows, a debut show and a grad show. I've also run this program in over 50 cities in Canada, the US, and Australia. And what happens that way is that I am contracted by like a behavioral health, a peer run organization, and they'll get in touch and they'll say, we've heard about you. We want you to run your program for us. We want you to work with our clients, members, et cetera, et cetera. And so I train the comics virtually over a 6 or a 12-week period. And then I fly in and we do a big public awareness raising show at a theater or a club or just something like that.
I mean,
Fantastic. That's brilliant.
I want to be your mentee.
That's because John wants to be a stand-up comedian.
I don't think I have it in me, but how many for how many therapists, how many counselor, comedians do you have out there as well? It's an amazing thing. It's such an interesting concept when you talk about something. You say it's not therapy, but it's therapeutic. When you talk about therapeutic, and I love that terminology. What does that mean when you say it's therapeutic?
Well, I guess when I say it's therapeutic, it's a wonderful way to build self-esteem and to build confidence. Because once you've done stand-up, you can do anything. Once you've made a room full of people laugh, you can get a job, you can go back to school, whatever it takes. And they always get a video of their act. And I say, when you're having a bad day, watch this video. remind yourself of what you can do, the amazing things that you're able to do. So that's the therapeutic angle. I think, I've had people say, um, I've tried talk therapy and I've been in group therapy and, done all that kind of stuff, and it just hasn't clicked. But this is something that's really, really helped me out. Now, once again, I'm not knocking therapy. I think therapy is great. I think group therapy is all that kind of stuff, but it's not for everyone. And just like, I mean, my course isn't for everyone. It's a self-select group of people. It's not, like I think it would be really damaging to have like a residential treatment program and go, okay, this week we're doing art therapy, next week we're doing stand-up comedy, and you have to participate. I think that would be, that would just be really damaging for people. So these are people who come forward, they've heard of us, and they really want to do stand-up comedy.
So, when you are up there on stage, are there some themes that resonate again and again with the audience? If so, will you
Well,
share some of them?
sure. I think a lot of the themes, and I'm also speaking for the comics that I train. I think, you know, a lot of people can really relate to experiences with their mental health. 'Cause what's the stat? 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 people have experienced a mental health issue, and plus, everyone knows someone who has a mental health issue. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful way of educating people in such a way it's not depressing. It's really uplifting. It's inspiring. And I remember we had someone I know came to one of our shows, and one of the comics was doing some jokes about having borderline personality, and this person I knew was watching the show, and she's like, my God, I think I have that. She learned more in a 5-minute set than she would have learned in, like 5 years of therapy. Like it just really, really resonated for her. So I think what we're talking about really resonates for a lot of people.
And when I think of, I go back to that therapeutic word. That was a
Yeah,
powerful phrase. When I think of
yeah,
therapeutic, but I think anything therapeutic, whether it's psychotherapy or whether it's what you do, I think therapy should increase a person's capacity. So whether it's
absolutely.
increasing my capacity to do whatever. So when you're talking about they improve their self-esteem, they do things
Yeah,
that they thought you're describing increasing people's capacity. And so it makes
totally.
total sense when you say this may not be psychotherapy, but it's very therapeutic. Anything that increases my capacity.
Also, you're talking about themes like borderline personality disorder. So many people are afraid of labels.
Mhm.
And I think they're afraid of labels just because they're afraid of labels. Oh, I don't have that. Um, eh, it the ability to break that down and deepen somebody's understanding beyond the fear of a label is so powerful.
Yeah, I think
And
so
being able to
too.
laugh at it.
Yeah, totally. Because people come to our shows, and like I say, they see people with all these scary labels, and they go, "Wow, these people are funny. They're friendly. They're someone I'd like to hang out with." And once again, those are not qualities that we associate with someone who has a mental health issue.
Unfortunately, I
Yeah,
it's mind-boggling, but you're exactly right.
yeah,
When I think about the labels, I think about a diagnosis, right? A diagnosis is not a thing. It's a paradigm, right? And it changes over time, right? And
It's a guide.
we tend, I think, in our culture sometimes to put so much weight on these diagnoses. And again, just like you would say, I mean, I agree. Like it's not that they're useless. I have some colleagues that would say they're all useless. There is some use to them as long as we recognize they're not real things, right? They're just
yeah, yeah,
describing some set of symptoms, and you know, when we we take a diagnosis and we say, "You're this way because you have this diagnosis or this," or when we do that to ourselves, it can be so damaging. So being able
yes,
to laugh about borderline personality or any other diagnosis is powerful for, I would imagine, for the person who's making folks laugh, but also for every one of us that's able to say, it's kind of silly. You're a person. Be a person.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, one of the things I wanted to say is that what happens too in stand up for mental health, it's like there's this cognitive shift. All of a sudden, all that bad stuff you've been through just becomes really great comedy material. And that changes the way it sits in your soul, because all of a sudden people go, oh, I can't wait to talk about that time I was in the psych ward and they took away all my clothes and they made me, wear grippy socks and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden that just becomes really funny. And it's like in the class, I don't see someone with bipolar, or I just see a comic and I treat them exactly like I would any other comics. Someone will come in and say, and this actually happened, they said, oh, 5 years ago I had a manic episode, I took off all my clothes and I ran around Walmart naked. And as a counselor, I'm supposed to say, wow, that sounds so traumatic. Let's talk about your feelings. As a comic, I'm like, whoa, that is hilarious. I can't wait to see that in your act. And it is hilarious. And like I say, it changes the way it sits in people's souls. Now they're almost, like I say, when you go, wow, this is great material, it it changes your whole self concept and your perception of yourself.
It's interesting. One of the things that we hear all the time from our alumni is they talk about what they call detox Reeboks. And detox Reeboks are those white grippy socks that you're talking about. So when somebody comes in and needs to be comfortable during landing, when they're in our detox program, we give them the grippy socks, and
Right.
they look back on it as something that was part of that experience. And we talk about how we're Reebok dealers with our detox Reeboks.
Yeah.
So um finding humor and whimsy in something like that really is not only a way to change the paradigm of the memory, but also it's a way for people to bond over a shared
Totally.
experience.
Totally. I think you're completely bang on.
You, uh, the phrase that you used, it changes how it sits in your soul. And you said it twice, and it just, from the first time you said it, it just kind of gave me pause. There is so much that we carry. We carry stuff, period. There's stuff that we carry. And sometimes people talk about letting go of things or getting rid of the reality is we're going to be carrying stuff. All of us
Hmm.
carry things.
Hmm.
Uh, but this idea of changing where it sits in your soul
And how it
Hmm.
sits.
and how it sits in your soul. And I'm thinking about airplanes and pilots. I know my brain's a little weird, but I'm thinking about, if you put things in the wrong place, you're going to have baggage. And if you put the baggage in the wrong place, the airplane won't fly right, and and you can crash. But if you put it in the right place, it'll actually make that plane fly even better. And it's such a beautiful picture of taking those things that are part of us. We're not, I want to get rid of everything that I don't like about myself, but that's not
Right.
how it works.
No.
But we can change where and how it sits in the soul. I'm going to be thinking about that all day.
David,
Oh.
I will let you know that Dr. D here is a pilot. And
Oh.
so we know that we've really touched him
Hmm.
when he comes up with either an anecdote or a metaphor that surrounds flying. So
Oh, wow.
we'll be
It's
talking about this one for a while.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and
So
the other thing. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. You were saying something.
no, no,
Oh,
no. I want to hear you.
okay. So the other thing that we've done is that we've taken what we do outside of the mental health community. So we've done over the years, we've probably done over 500 shows for like the military, correctional facilities, governments, corporations, colleges, universities, nonprofits, healthcare. We even did a show, believe it or not, we did a show. This was a virtual show for the U.S. Secret Service. The Secret Service sought us
Wow.
out and wanted us to do a show. And it was really interesting because um, they too want to raise awareness around mental health and encourage their people to go for help. And I think it's really tough because there's the what I learned was in the Secret Service there's the civilian side, the management, admin staff, IT people, and then there's what they call the gun carriers. These are the people who, protect, high profile people and carry out investigations and all that kind of stuff. And they said, it's really tough because on the one hand, they really want to promote um, good mental health, but sometimes it's hard to reach people who are in those gun carrier rules because they think, if someone thinks that I went to a mental health presentation, my career is over. No one's going to want to work with me. So it was really interesting, the fact that they sought us out. And I think it makes sense too, because once again, it's different to say, well, I went to this course, this presentation on depression, whereas it's different to say, I went and saw this comedy thing. It's a lot less threatening.
Good point.
It makes so much sense. So the next thing I was thinking is what's the future? Because this is an amazing thing you're talking about. You're talking about hundreds of shows. You're talking about, so a show happens when you have invested in people and they have gone through this process. So when you're talking about hundreds of shows, you're talking about thousands of people who've been impacted, not to mention the people who are watching and what is the future?
Well, I guess the future is to continue to run groups in as many cities as possible and to reach as many organizations as possible with our shows. I also do shows and keynotes on my own. And so, where I talk about stand up for mental health and comedy and mental health. And so it's a matter of reaching as many people as possible. And so that's the future.
I love it. I can't. I mean, I'm going to be stalking this a little bit over this week because this is an exciting and this is a unique. It's something that's so
Mhm.
unique.
Mhm.
I'm also the bad guy.
I was hoping we could ask David for just a little bit of comedy before you have to be the bad guy.
Ah, oh, so you're putting me on the spot, are you? Let me just see. So, okay. So, found a great new way of overcoming depression. Whenever I'm depressed or bummed out, I go find someone who's really happy and I suck the life force out of them. Thank you. I learned that from my parents. And in stand up for mental health, we're not allowed to, we have to be very respectful. You're not supposed to joke about a disorder unless you have that disorder. So every week I get a different diagnosis.
Then you can diagnose
Ne-
yourself too.
Right.
well, next week I'm playing a menopause convention. Oh, that's a little sample.
Love it. I love the parent part.
Yeah,
Come down to South Florida.
Yes, for
yeah.
sure.
I
Well,
hope you do.
Yeah, I did something in Miami for the Key Clubhouse where they had me train a group of comics and they were having a big like a fundraiser gala or something like that. And so myself and these four comics, we performed a show at this fundraising gala. It was really cool.
Fun.
I hope you get down here again. If people want to learn more about this, how can people learn more about this?
Standupformentalhealth.com has all the information, or just Google Stand Up for Mental Health. You'll find us immediately.
And being the guy who gets to be the bad guy, I have to watch our time and we are
Yeah.
at our time. But
Okay.
we like to always give our guests the last word. And so it's a broad audience. There's mental health professionals. There's people who have no background in mental health. There's all sorts of folks who listen to this. But I'd like to just give you the last word. What would you like for folks out there to hear from you today, especially those who might be struggling with mental health themselves?
Couple things. I like to say that some suffering is optional, and if you can avoid that optional suffering, you're doing really well. And humor and comedy is a great way to avoid some of that optional suffering. And also, I wanted to say that so in mental health, we talk about we're strength based. We're looking for strengths. But when you're seeing a psychiatrist and a psychologist and a counselor and an occupational therapist and a social worker, it's really easy to feel like there's something wrong with you. Well, you're in my class because there's something right with you. And that's a whole different way of looking at things.
Terrific.
Beautiful, beautiful message. Thank you, David, so much for being here. I hope that you do get down here. And thank you just for your time. This was beautiful. Also, thank you, Dr. D, as always. Love being with you.
Thank you, Dr. D. This was terrific.
It really was. I'm going to think about where things sit in our souls. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on The Hanley Effect.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for The Hanley Effect. To learn more about our programs, visit hanleyfoundation.org or call 844-502-4673.